Hi to all of you. I am Dr. Divya. I have completed my MD General Medicine and currently I am working as a faculty in an eminent medical college at Chennai. So, I am going to be talking about the topic called dyslipidemia today. So, as the name suggests, this is a disturbance in the lipid levels in your body. So, before we begin the exact topic of dyslipidemia, I will be giving you a short intro on the lipid metabolism so that you can understand the topic a little better. So, we will go to the basics of lipid metabolism so that you can understand the topic much better. So, first you say any food that we take, whatever be the macronutrient in the food, protein or carbohydrate or any macronutrient has to be broken down into smaller fragments for that to be absorbed into the body. Okay. So, what is being done is the process of metabolism of these macronutrients. So, first we consume some food, it is taken into the oral cavity and in the oral cavity it is acted upon by the saliva. So, saliva per se will contain certain enzymes like your lipases. Okay. So, for fat metabolism, the most important one is your salivary lipase. So, food is acted upon by salivary lipase. It is then taken through the esophagus into your stomach, and in the stomach again we have the secretion of another lipase which is called the gastric lipase. So, you have gastric lipase, you have the salivary lipase, and then you will have the food mixing with the acid contents of the stomach. This acidity of the stomach is necessary for activation of the salivary lipase. After food is acted upon by the salivary lipase and the gastric lipase, it travels down into your duodenum where it is going to come in contact with your pancreatic lipases. Pancreatic lipase is the most important lipase because it helps in degradation of most of the fatty content in our food. Food mainly contains cholesterol and triglycerides. So, triglycerides have to be broken down into smaller molecules or fatty acids. So, your triglyceride is nothing but a glyceride backbone with 3 fatty acids attached to it. So, that is why it is called triglyceride. So, at the end of metabolism with lipases, what you are going to have is a monoglyceride and along with it 2 fatty acids. One fatty acid attached to the glycerol chain and another 2 fatty acids. So, this will be absorbed by the body at the level of your jejunum. Fatty acid absorption occurs at the jejunum. You would have learnt in biochemistry that different micro and macronutrients are absorbed at different levels in your body. So, if we take fatty acids, they are absorbed at the level of the jejunum. For any substance, any molecule to cross your body cell membrane, it has to be, you would have heard about ionized, unionized substances in pharmacology. Unionized substances cross the cell membrane easier. So, this fatty acid or the monoglyceride cannot easily cross through the membrane and enter the intestinal cell. So, what happens is we have the bile salts being secreted by the liver. So, this bile salt mixes with whatever fatty acids and triglycerides gets formed in the duodenum, and by the time it reaches the jejunum, here in the jejunum, it will be forming something known as a micelle. So, micelle. Okay, so what is this micelle? In the micelle, you have the fatty acids at the center with the bile salts or surrounding it. You would have heard about quinodeoxycholic acid, taurodecholic acid, all this. These are the bile salts. So, these fatty acids are at the center, they are surrounded by the bile salts. You have a hydrophilic component and a hydrophobic component. Hydrophilic, philic means loving, water loving. So, something which can get solubilized in water is called as a water loving or a hydrophilic substance. This hydrophilic substance will help in the penetration of the fatty acids from the jejunum into the intestinal cell. Okay. So, what happens in the jejunal cell is shown in the smaller diagram. So, you will have the fatty acid in the gut lumen and it will enter into the cell as a micelle. Okay. So, you have the fatty acid surrounded by the hydrophilic and the hydrophobic part of the bile salt and it will get absorbed into the enterocyte. In the enterocyte, what happens is a process known as reesterification. This the micelle which gets inside the cell will release the fatty acid inside the enterocyte. So, when this gets released, the process of reesterification, that is the fatty acid will again get converted into glyceride, your triglycerides. So, this process is called as reesterification, and once it is reesterified, it is packaged in something known as chylomicron. So, what is this chylomicron? Chylomicron is an apolipoprotein. Okay. So, chylomicron is an lipoprotein. So, this chylomicron will then be absorbed into the lymphatics. through the lacteals. You would have seen in the intestine that there are some villi, and at the base of this villi you will have the lymphatics. Those are known as the lacteals. So any nutrients which are absorbed through the intestinal villi will reach into the lacteals, and these lacteals will finally, fat being a lipid compound or your triglycerides being a lipid compound, they will preferentially enter into the lacteals rather than directly into the blood vessels. So from these lacteals, they will later, through your systemic circulation, you would have heard about how the lymphatics mix with the systemic circulation, they will enter into your systemic circulation and then into your blood. Okay, so this is how fat is getting absorbed from the food into the systemic circulation. So a quick recap: you take food which contains cholesterol and triglycerides. They are acted upon by the lipases, which can be the lingual lipase, the gastric lipase and the pancreatic lipase. There are certain other enzymes called the lipoprotein lipase and the hormone sensitive lipase, about which I will be talking in the next slide. So then you have the micelles forming at the level of the jejunum, which helps in transporting the cholesterol into the cell. After that, the cholesterol is absorbed at the gut at the level of the jejunum, and one thing which I missed is, in the jejunum the cholesterol gets inside the cell. You have the micelles entering at the level of the jejunum. So at this level the fatty acid enters the cell, and the bile salt which was surrounding all around the micelle will be left out at this level at the jejunum. So this bile salt will then be taken back to the liver. This is known as the enterohepatic circulation of bile salts. So next step will be reesterification. That is, once your fatty acid enters inside the liver cell, inside the jejunal cell, it is reesterified to form triglycerides. Once triglycerides are formed, then they are going to be packaged into your chylomicrons, and then it is going to be absorbed into your lymphatics. So this is the process by which fat is absorbed in our body.